Welcome back to the channel. It's a revolutionary time for Blender. So many of you guys must know Blender now can loop. A lot of content creator now is making this in the same time. Everyone have different method, genius way to do things. Very exciting time. And we will see this will be developed very fast. I will keep making this loop generate content from easy to advanced. So today we are going to make something like this. It's using point instancing the sphere, and this point is using loop to generate, so you can have very beautiful pattern and very beautiful color. In the future, we will talk about how to make it to be curved. Using curve is a little bit more difficult because you have to rearrange the index, because when the point index used to the curve is a little bit different. So that will be the next video. And also you can have this kind of weird pattern that is not like only noise. It's using different pattern to apply that, and you can do an animation. And also we will talk about how to use this curve to work on any kind of mesh. The result is much better than you just use warp modifier. It will be very precise. Let's take a look what we're going to make today, so you will make these very beautiful things. As always, file will be on my Patreon, so you can join Patreon to support me and support new content for Blender. Okay, let's jump into this. Now let's do this noise fill using geometry node loop function. Create two objects, two plane. First one, we can name it to be loop, and the second one, we name it to be master. Create a geometry node on top of it. The first one, we call it loop, and the second one, we call it master. Okay, so we can ping this. So now let's drag this loop to the master. Okay, and the master to the loop. Loop, master, master, loop. Right. So now we don't have to worry about this loop anymore. We can just join the area. Okay, so let's worry about this, and we can hide this loop. So now let's test this loop using a point and join geometry. And put this on top of the join geometry and give a step position. So let's try to drag this to see. Yes, this is our loop, so it's working. And let's set it to 0. We want to clear this out, so make a switch and compare same time, and set it to be integer and set it to be equal to 0. Now we drag this and we set the timeline to 0. It will clear out everything, and let's go to frame 1. So now we have our loop and clear. Okay, so it means when it's frame 0, it go to truth, so it's empty, so it will clear out. So let's frame this. So you can make all these kind of tools in your SS library, so you don't have to redo this again. You just drag this, and I have made a bunch of these tools I will introduce later. Now let's go to frame 1 so we can see our loop. So what we're going to do is use a noise texture. We are going to use this noise texture to drive this position in each frame. So in each frame it will have a new position. We can just try to plug this in the offset right away to see, and let's set it to be 4D. Now we can drag this W, so it have some different value. We can see it in this point. It have each value every time we update, but you see it's all been offset this direction, so we have to remap that. So use map range, and because it's vector, so set it to vector and set it to be -1 to 1. So now whenever we drag, it will be around the center, and also we can scale it, vector map, and set it to be scale 2 times. so it will be bigger. So now we have this noise to drive our offset, so we can get this. But now it's like a noise because they all have random position in each time update, but it's not like growing, it's not building on top of itself, because what we want is, let's clear this and go to frame 1. So now we have this offset. The next time we offset, it will be randomly from the 0 point to the other place. But what we want is from here, when we update, it goes to here. And the next time we update, it finds a position relative this position to offset. And the next time we update, it finds this relative to this position. So that's how it grows. But now it's like every time when you offset, and the next time when it offset, it finds the noise relative to this 0 position. So it will always be around this place. So that's not what we want. This is what we want. How we do that is, you see here is an offset and here is a position. So now we have to give a 2 value. One is for offset, one is for position. So what we give the position is kind of like the previous position of this loop. So let's clear this first. So what we can do is use a sample index, set it to be vector, and take a position and put this to here, and use the index, sample this. We take this from the beginning and we drag this to here. Let's see if that works. So it works. It's kind of like a offset itself. That's because we take the previous position, because it's the beginning of the loop. It's not showing like a new data yet. So this is kind of like the previous position. So we capture this to the position, so it's being offset from there. So we take the previous position and build on top an offset, and that's how it grows. So now that's also take this value to the noise. So now let's try to play the timeline. You will see it's growing out like that, because every time the noise vector is being updated, so it will have like a variant value for that. That's how it every time it be different. But now it's only 1 point. So let's say if we want like a 10 point growing in the same time. Let's try to play that again. It seems to be still like a 1 point. That's because all the point is in the same position, which is 0, 0, 0. They all stack on top each other. So now we can use this index to the W. So let's use index. So put it to the W. Now we go to frame 0 and let's play again. So now you see you have grown more. You have like 10 point. So maybe let's go to the 1 point. See again, it's like that. Go to 4 point. Now you can see it's kind of like a 4 string. So now we can play around with this noise. You will see like that. Now it's growing like a pretty fast, because if you see this gap, it's demonstrated by this scale. So if we set it to be 0.1, let's draw it again. It will grow very slowly, but it's actually using the same path, but just growing more detail, more slowly. It depends on your need. If you want it to be more detailed, very fine, you set it to be lower. But if you want it to be like a larger scale, you don't want it to be too small, because you will have a lot of points to have to calculate. So maybe it's 0.5. You see this, and when we drag this different scale for the noise, you will see it's being updated real time when we update this different noise pattern. So it's kind of like a drawing. You can manipulate this noise whenever you like, and the new noise will follow a new pattern. It will not affect the old point. That is this method do. And there's a lot of different methods for drawing noise. Some method is using curve to expand the noise. That is maybe better for like a overall animation, but this is better for the if you want to design a unique pattern, stable pattern. So now we got this. Let's scale up our noise to be like a super high, maybe 100, so we can get this. We can even update the gap real time. It's like going like this. About this index, we can put a math over here in between the index, set it to be multiply. When it multiply smaller, the W will be closer for each index, so the pattern will be more close to each other. That's the 0.1. So you will see a better pattern that is growing together. So you see, because this index is being scaled down a lot, so they all like almost like a same string but a little bit different. And if you want to make it spread out from there, you just set it to higher. It will spread out more, maybe even bigger. It will spread out. So that's some value you can change the size of each gap. That is the index for how different you want your point to be. Usually I would like to put the point to vector. And also you can put the add after that, or you can set it to be multiply and add. So we can add some different value to give a totally different set of the noise pattern. So that is how you find your pattern. It will not affect your multiply because it's only add on top of it. The difference in between still remain the same. Let's say, okay, I'm happy with this. Let's make another geometry node to draw it out for all these points. So let's create a plan, call it display point. So let's give another workspace for the point and pin this, because we will jump between these two and drag this master to here. So now we want to draw some sphere. So echo sphere, and we can use an instancing point. So we use this as the point because we draw a lot of point over here and we want it instancing some sphere. Let's try if that works. Yes. And we can set it to be smaller. So let's use this 0.1. Now we have our point. Let's draw again. So we see this point and they all looks the same size. So one thing we can do, use a noise texture in here, set the size of it, color ramp, make it black and white, math. Okay, so we can multiply this, maybe multiply and add. So maybe this 0.1 is our base size, and this. So we can use a noise to control that. However, there's a even better way, because this noise, it has nothing to do with this pattern. It's like a totally different pattern. So we can pass the pattern from here to drive this noise. So now we go to this master and we use a store name attribute. We can set it to be my noise and set it to be vector. Okay, so let's drag this color to the value. So now we can pass this value to here. So we use a name attribute and we want to sample that. Sample index, let's set it to be vector and plug this to here, and this also to vector in here. And now we can find my noise, and also we need to plug this index. So let's use this noise to drive this. Let's see if that makes any difference. So just give it some, maybe we multiply it too much. So now we have this noise that is relative to our overall noise, our precision noise. Yeah, so that is how you make your noise fill particle. So now let's try to give it some material. So now it doesn't have any material. Let's give a material using a separate geometry node. I feel it's better. So maybe just set material. Let's go to the set material and let's create a material for that. Okay, so let's drag this material out so we can apply it from outside. Give the color first that we can see it. So over here and set material. So we got some material. So go to the shader and we can play around with material. Now we can try to use this noise, pass that out to drive this material. We can just drag this to here and we name this to be my noise, and also over here to my noise. And we go to our material shader and use the attribute and use my noise. Let's see that works. So when you just use this attribute to the base color, you will see black, which is mean nothing. That's because this is an instancing. So we have to set this from geometry to instancer. So now we can see there's some color. Maybe we can make it like more stronger, more contrast. You can see this. That is our noise. So if somewhere like here you can see some kind of pattern, that is this color. So this color looks pretty noisy and random, so we can just mix with some color, RGB, okay, and mix color so it will not be too strong. So maybe if I like to be red, let's mix like that, so it will just be somewhere between red. It will not be totally too random. So now we can give a material, give it some glassy. That's too black because our background is empty, so let's give a HDRI. So now I give a HDRI. So let's take a look at this. So now you can use this noise to play around with your material. Let's just play around with that. So if you use like a glassy material, you might see some like all this black area. I'm not quite sure, but it's something to do like all this sphere is being like intersecting together or something. Something you can do, fix that a little bit, just like path sample to be more global. It will be like brighter because the glassy sample is higher. And something you can do to over here, maybe turn off this shadow, so it's kind of like the shadow is not casting on itself, like a bouncing too much, and set the roughness for the transmission a little bit higher. Like the higher it goes, it will get less black area. If you want to get rid of that totally, just click off this. You can get totally rid of that, but you lose a little bit the glass feeling. So if anyone knows, please leave a comment, tell me, and tell everyone. I'm okay with that. For now, I kind of like the some part is being darker, and now just play around this a little bit more. And then let's talk about how to render this. So if you just want to render animation, that is even easier than image. Just hit render. Now I'm using Eevee because it's faster, so it will just be rendered out, because while it render, it's also generate in each frame. The animation is easier to render. You don't have to do anything, you can just render this. Let's stop this so you can have this render result. But if you want to render an image, that is a different story. So let's try to render this out. If you just hit render, you will see something like this. It's almost nothing. It means only look one time. So we have to apply this to be able to render that. So to apply this master, so first let's take a display point, this object that use this master. We take this out. because we will change it to be the other one later. So now we duplicate this master and let's let it loop again. Okay, so now all the loop finished. So now let's apply the geometry node of this master 2. So that's hit apply. Okay, so we can hide first one. We don't use that for now. So now the master 2 is no longer a geometry node. It's actually a mesh that only have point. You can even drag all these points. You remember this display point? Now we use this object master 2. So now it's using a point that is canon, that is not generate. Now if we hit render, now we have this image. So let's wait for it to be rendered. So that is the render results. When you want to generate again, you just don't use this master 2, just go back to the master 1, use different noise pattern, and then we're happy with the generated result. And we can duplicate the master and we generate that and we apply that. So that is how you can do your image render. So if you want to do animation, you have to do it in this display point to delete some of the point. So now let's use master 2. Okay, so just use delete geometry here and use compare and use index integer is less than. Yeah, so make a keyframe on this to this. You have this B, you make the keyframe on this B, so you can do an animation for this, and that's how you do the animation render. That's almost like everything in this section. So sometimes we will draw it to be like a curve, right, like a hair expanding, but it's actually a little bit more difficult than you think. Let's try to just draw it using this to be curved, make a totally different one only for curve. So use another and make it to be like a display curve, then a geometry node to be display curve. Okay, and drag this master in curve line, use this curve to set position. So and we sample this index, position, index, vector, position, index. So now that's set position for this curve. Use resample curve. Let's just try to give it some high number. You will see sampling. So we will use this point number. So be able to get that, we have to use a domain size point count to this count. Okay, so now we want to set it to be curved, but it will looks like this. It will not looks like what we expect, like this, like growing out each string. It's kind of like a messed up. It all connecting together. It's like a one curve all over, and also this part should not be connecting. So the reason of that is because of the index generated from here. It's not ideal for drawing curve in this way. We have to rearrange index, but actually the method of remapping this index is a little bit complicated. So I have to talk about in the separate video. So in the next video, we will talk about how to use this method to draw perfectly curve in the geometry node loop. So I'm really hoping to see you in that video. It's going to be more tips, deeper concept, deeper knowledge about all this, more advanced use. So hope you can join this loop journey. Let's do this together. It's blowing everyone's mind. Now a lot of content creator is making this loop. It's like a revolution for Blender. Let's make it happen. If we play this a lot, I'm sure the Blender developer will make even better tools for this. So we have to keep this like a loop things in the very high stage and let them know we want it to be loop. So see you next video. Bye bye.